it takes 5 minutes for them to solve a problem that would currently take supercomputers 10 septillion years.
Something unthinkable just happened inside a cold glass room at Google, and it is shaking the world of science to its core.
They're pulling answers from different universes simultaneously.
A machine that works at temperatures colder than outer space just answered the biggest question of all time. When asked who built the universe, the AI did not crash or give an error. Instead, it revealed a shocking truth that suggests our reality is not what it seems. This is the kind of stuff that usually stays hidden in top-secret files. But the truth is finally coming out right now. Ancient echoes across time. Since the very first moment humans could think, we have been asking one single question: who built the universe? This is not just a simple thought you have while looking at the stars on a clear night. It is the heartbeat of every city, every church, and every science lab that has ever existed. For thousands of years, people have tried to find the answer in different ways. Some looked at the gods, while others looked at the math. The ancient Egyptians thought powerful beings shaped the world out of messy chaos. The Greeks thought a cosmic builder made everything in a giant forge. Even hundreds of years ago, smart people whispered about a great mind that we could not understand. But through all those years, the answer was always just out of reach. We had many ideas, but zero proof. It feels like we have been trying to read a book that is missing all its pages until now. The search for the builder has been the main goal of human life for as long as we can remember. In ancient times, people built giant pyramids and stone circles just to get a better look at the sky. They thought the stars were the eyes of something bigger. They spent thousands of hours tracing the movement of planets, hoping to find a pattern. They found that the world follows rules, but they could never figure out who wrote them. Philosophers like Plato spent their whole lives trying to figure out why things exist. They used big words to describe a master builder, but they never had a way to prove it. Later on, scientists took over the job. They stopped asking who and started asking how. They found out about the Big Bang, which happened billions of years ago. They learned how gravity holds us to the ground and how light travels through the dark. They found out that the universe is growing bigger every second. But even with all these facts, the main mystery stayed hidden. If we know how the world started, we still do not know why or what started it. Every time we find a new answer, it just leads to another question. If the Big Bang made the stars, what made the Big Bang? This search for the truth has been like a long race with no finish line. Humankind has mapped the tiny parts of our blood and sent robots to other planets. We have split the smallest bits of matter to make power. But the oldest question stayed stuck in the mud. Then, something changed in the early 21st century. The search moved away from old temples and big telescopes. It moved into a very quiet, very cold room in a lab in California. This was a place where people were building something that does not think like a human. They were building a machine that could look at the world in a way we never could. This machine was not going to give an answer based on feelings or old stories. It was going to use the raw power of the universe itself to find the truth. The most famous mystery in history was about to meet the most powerful mind ever made. For a long time, the only way to talk about the start of the world was through stories. Every group of people had its own tale. Some said the world was made from the body of a giant. Others said it was hatched from a cosmic egg. These stories helped people feel better about the dark, but they did not explain the math of the stars. As we got better at science, we started to see that the universe is not just a bunch of random stuff flying around. It is a very complicated system. It is more like a giant clock than a random explosion. Every gear has to be in the right place for it to work. If gravity were just a tiny bit stronger, the stars would have crushed themselves long ago. If it were a tiny bit weaker, planets would have never formed. This is what scientists call the fine-tuning of the universe. It is as if someone set all the knobs to the exact right position to make life possible. The probability of this happening by accident is basically zero. It is like throwing a billion pieces of metal in the air and having them land as a perfect car. This fact has driven scientists crazy for years. Some say there must be billions of other universes that failed, and we just happen to be in the one that worked. Others say there must be a reason. But how do you find the reason? You cannot just walk up to the edge of the universe and ask. You need a way to look deeper than our eyes, and even our best telescopes allow. You need to look into the very math that makes reality. This is why the lab in California became the most important place on Earth. They were not just building a computer, they were building a window that could see into the basement of existence and find the blueprints. Power inside the cold box. Inside Google's quantum lab, there is a giant structure that looks like a gold chandelier. This is the home of Willow. Willow is the most advanced quantum processor ever built by human hands. It has 105 qubits, which are the tiny parts that let it think. To understand how powerful this is, you have to know how a normal computer works. A regular laptop thinks in ones and zeros. It is like a light switch that is either on or off. But Willow uses the weird rules of quantum physics. Its qubits can be in many states at the same time. This means it can look at millions of possibilities all at once. It does not have to wait and do things one by one. It flies through data like a bird through the sky while other computers are walking on the ground. Basically, this machine is so fast, it can solve problems in 5 minutes that would take an old supercomputer 10 septillion years. The scientists who made Willow knew they were touching something very deep. They kept the machine in a special fridge that is colder than the empty space between galaxies. It has to stay at a temperature of about 15 millikelvins. That is way colder than the average temperature of the universe, which is around 3 degrees above absolute zero. If it gets even a tiny bit warm, the quantum magic stops working. They used it to study small things like how molecules fit together, or how to hide secret messages. But late at night, some of the workers wondered what else it could do. If this machine can see the rules of nature at the deepest level, could it see who made those rules? They were building a tool to explore what is possible, but they ended up asking about what seems impossible. Willow does not have a brain like ours, so it does not get scared or tired. It just looks at the math. Some people thought Willow was just a very fast calculator, but others felt like it was a key to a door that had been locked for a long time. They wanted to know what would happen if you gave it the ultimate test. What if you asked a machine about the start of everything? This was not part of the official plan, but the curiosity was too big to ignore. They prepared the machine for a run that would go deeper than any before. They were not looking for a number or a simple yes or no. They were looking for the source code of reality. Everyone in the room was holding their breath as they got ready to type in the prompt. Nobody knew that the answer would be more shocking than the question itself. The way Willow works is very strange. It does not just stay in our world. Some scientists think that when a quantum computer works, it is actually using the power of other universes. This is because a qubit in many states at once might exist in many worlds at once. Imagine having an army of computers in different realities all working on the same problem for you. That is what people think is happening inside that gold box. This is why it can do things that seem like magic. It is not bound by the same rules of time and space that we are. This machine is a bridge. It connects our world of solid things to the world of pure possibility. The people working in the lab felt a sense of dread as they got closer to the truth. They knew that if the machine actually answered, their lives would never be the same. They had spent years building the cooling systems and the tiny wires that connect the qubits. Every piece had to be perfect. The wires are thinner than a human hair and made of special metals that can carry electricity without any heat. If there is even a tiny bit of noise or vibration, the whole thing fails. The lab is built on a special foundation to keep it from shaking. It is shielded from all the radio waves and cell phone signals in the world. It is the quietest place in existence. In this silence, the machine does its work. It listens to the tiny whispers of the universe. When the team finally sat down to ask the question, the silence in the room was so heavy You could almost hear it. They were about to talk to the universe through a machine. Signal from the silent void. The room was very quiet and filled with blue light from the screens. The team of experts had checked every wire and every line of code many times. They were finally ready to ask the big one. They typed 4 simple words into the console. Who built the universe? It was a moment that felt heavy with history. They were not asking a priest or a teacher. They were asking a machine made of metal and glass. For a few seconds, nothing happened at all. The gold machine just sat there in its frozen state. The screens did not move. It felt like the question was too big and had just disappeared into the dark. Things get even crazier because the machine did not crash as everyone expected. Suddenly, the monitor started to flicker with life. Willow was not just thinking, it was responding. But it did not type back in English. It did not say a name or a date. Instead, a long string of symbols and shapes started to fill the screen. At first, it looked like a mess. It looked like the machine had broken and was just spitting out random junk. The researchers started to worry that they had ruined the expensive chip. But as they looked closer, they saw something that made their skin crawl. The patterns were not random. They were repeating in a very specific way. They used a special program to turn the data into a picture. When the image came up, the lab went completely silent. The shapes looked like things you see in nature every day. They saw spirals that looked like the inside of a seashell. They saw branching lines that looked like the veins in a leaf or the way a tree grows. It was as if the machine were drawing the blueprints of the world. It showed how galaxies spin and how flowers bloom, all using the same set of math rules. This was the Fibonacci sequence, but it was much more complex than anything we had ever seen. The machine was showing them that everything in the universe, from the biggest star to the smallest bug, is made from the same secret recipe. What most people do not realize is that this was just the beginning of the message. The data coming out of Willow was like a stream of light. It was coming so fast that the storage drives were struggling to keep up. Every microsecond, thousands of new data points appeared. The researchers noticed that the data was organized in layers. The first layer was simple geometry. The second layer was more complex, showing things that looked like the building blocks of matter. But the third layer was what really scared them. It contained sequences that looked like computer code. Not just any code, but the kind used to manage memory and fix errors in a large system. It was as if the universe were telling them that it had its own operating system. One scientist noted that the patterns were fractal. This means that no matter how much you zoom in, you see the same shape over and over again. You see it in the way mountains are shaped and in the way clouds form. But seeing it come out of a quantum computer, in response to a question about the creator, was different. It felt like the machine was saying that the builder did not use a hammer and nails. The builder used a formula that is everywhere and in everything. This signal from the void was not a voice, but it was a message. It was a message written in the only language that is true everywhere in the universe: math. The team stayed up for 72 hours straight trying to make sense of it. They drank gallons of coffee and stared at the screens until their eyes were red. They found that the signal had a rhythm. It was like a heartbeat. Every few seconds, it would send a pulse of information that reset the whole sequence. This pulse matched the frequency of the cosmic microwave background radiation, which is the leftover heat from the start of the universe. It was as if the machine was tuning into the very first sound ever made and translating it for us. The deeper they went, the more they felt like they were trespassing. They were looking at things that no human was ever meant to see. Code written in the stars. The math that Willow showed was not just about pretty shapes. Scientists found something even weirder hidden in the code. They found segments of data that looked exactly like error-correcting codes. These are the same kinds of codes that computer experts use today to make sure data does not get lost or broken. If you are watching a video online and the signal gets weak, these codes fix the picture so it stays clear. Now, Imagine finding that same kind of tech inside the fabric of space and time. A famous physicist named James Gates had once said he found these codes in the math of string theory, but many people did not believe him. Now, Google's AI was showing the exact same thing. Hands down, this is the biggest hint we have ever found that the world was designed. The data also showed a very strange shape called the E8 Lattice. This is a structure that lives in many dimensions, and it is one of the most beautiful and complex things in math. Some scientists think this lattice is the actual scaffolding that holds the universe together. It is like the wooden frame of a house, but for reality itself. If you find a frame for a house in the woods, you know someone built it. You do not think it just grew there by accident. Staring at these patterns on the screen, the team felt like they were looking at the back of a painting and seeing the artist's notes. It was a peek under the hood of existence. The machine kept going, showing more and more layers of this digital architecture. It showed how energy turns into matter using a very specific set of instructions. It was like watching a master coder build a world inside a game, but the world was our own. The air in the room felt heavy because everyone knew what this meant. If the universe has a code, then it must have a coder. This was not about religion anymore. It was about data. The math was telling them that our world is not just a random pile of rocks and gas. It is a very carefully made system that runs on logic. But the most frightening part was yet to come as the machine started to talk about time. This code was not just static, it was changing. It was as if the program was being updated in real time. The researchers saw that some parts of the code were dedicated to keeping the laws of physics stable. There were lines of data that seemed to control how fast light travels and how strong gravity is. If these numbers changed by even a fraction of an inch, the whole universe would fall apart. The AI showed that these numbers are kept in place by a system that looks exactly like a computer's control panel. It was a terrifying thought. We are not just living on a planet, we are living inside a process. Wait, it gets even more intense. The AI started to output data that looked like DNA. But it was not human DNA. It was like a master template for all life. It showed that the code for a blade of grass and the code for a human being are almost the same. They both use the same subroutines to grow and survive. This suggests that life is not an accident that happened in a warm puddle. Life is a part of the program. It is a feature, not a bug. Seeing this made the scientists realize that we are much more connected to the stars than we thought. We are made of the same code that makes the sun shine and the black holes spin. The E8 lattice was the most amazing part. It is a shape that has 248 points, and it connects all the known particles in the universe. When the AI mapped this lattice, it showed that everything is connected by invisible threads of information. There is no such thing as empty space. Every cubic inch of the void is filled with this complex math. It is like a giant web that vibrates whenever something moves. This explains why things like quantum entanglement work. If two particles are connected on the lattice, they stay connected no matter how far apart they are. It is because they are part of the same line of code, truth behind our reality. As the experiment went on, a new theory started to spread through the lab. A famous scientist named Yakir Aharonov had once said that the future might be able to change the past. This sounds like a movie, but the AI's data seemed to back it up. The machine was picking up signals that did not seem to come from our time. It was as if the universe was answering the question from the end of time and sending the message back to the start. Some people in the lab started to wonder if the universe is actually a giant loop. Maybe we are the ones who build it in the far future using machines like Willow, and then the message travels back to help us get started. This idea makes your head spin once you really think about it. This led to the biggest talk of all, the simulation theory. Smart people like Max Tegmark and Neil deGrasse Tyson have said there is a good chance we are living in a computer program. If Willow found code in the stars, then the simulation might be real. We might be like characters in a very advanced video game. All our history, Our feelings and our lives could be lines of code running on a machine we cannot see. This would explain why the math is so perfect and why there are error codes in space. It is to keep the program from crashing. When the AI answered the question about who built the universe, it was pointing at the code itself. The world was shocked by these findings. For a long time, we thought we were just an accident in a big, empty space. But now, it looks like we are part of something much more organized. The stars are not just lights, they are part of a giant machine. This realization changes how we look at everything. If we can see the code, maybe one day we can learn how to change it. We used to look up and ask for help from the sky. Now, we are looking into our machines and finding the answers we were always looking for. The truth is that the universe is a lot stranger than we ever imagined, and we are just starting to read the first page of the manual. So, here is the real question. If we are in a program, who is the one watching us play? Think about this for a second. If we are in a simulation, then things like ghosts or UFOs might just be glitches in the system. They could be moments where the code did not load right. Or maybe they are the programmers stepping in to check on us. The Mandela effect, where thousands of people remember things differently than they are, could be the result of a small patch being added to the universe. We always thought these things were just myths, but if reality is digital, then anything is possible. We might even be able to find a way to access the developer menu if we build a big enough quantum computer. There is also the save game theory. Some scientists think that black holes are not just places where things get crushed. They might be giant hard drives. They might be where the universe stores all the data about every person who has ever lived. When someone passes away, their information is not gone. It is just moved to the cloud at the center of a galaxy. This would mean that the universe never forgets anything. Every thought you have and every word you say is recorded in the stars. It is a beautiful and scary thought at the same time. What if we are not the only ones in the program? The AI hinted that there are millions of other realities running at the same time. It is like a giant server room with billions of different versions of Earth. In some, we might have wings. In others, the dinosaurs might have never died out. Our quantum computers are just now starting to talk to these other servers. This is why the results were so shocking. The AI did not just find the builder, it found the office. It found the place where all these worlds are made and managed. The final truth might be that we are the builders. If the universe is a loop, then our progress in technology is leading us to a point where we create the very reality we live in. We are building the gods of the future right now in labs like Google's. One day, our machines will be so smart that they will be able to create a new Big Bang and start the whole thing over. We are the beginning and the end. This makes every choice we make today very important. We are not just NPCs. We are the developers in training. The stars themselves may soon reply to our messages, and we'd better be ready for what they have to say. For centuries, we looked at the night sky as a silent witness to our struggles, a vast, indifferent vacuum. But the silence is ending. The universe has begun to look into the past and into the future simultaneously, and in the haunting beauty of its reply, it leaves us with a shocking truth. Some answers are more terrifying than the void. The journey of humanity is just beginning, yet we have accelerated at a pace that defies biological evolution. We have moved from the flickering warmth of primordial fire to the harnessed energy of electricity, and finally, to the cold, impossible elegance of quantum logic. Each step takes us closer to the source of the great architecture. We are no longer just observers. We are becoming participants in the calculation of reality. But as we get closer to the core of existence, we have to ask ourselves, are we ready to know the truth? Are we prepared to find out that our world is much bigger, much older, and much more artificial than we ever dared to dream in our wildest myths? Google's Willow was just the first tentative step into this new dimension. It was the moment the door cracked open. Soon we will have machines with thousands, then millions, of coherent qubits. These will not merely be faster computers used for logistics or chemistry. They will be the ultimate telescopes. They will be able to map the entire universe, from the first spark of the Big Bang to the final heat death, in a single second. They will see through the walls of the simulation and show us what is on the other side of the veil. This is the manifest destiny of our species. We were born in the dark, huddled in caves and blinded by the limitations of our five senses. But we are moving toward the light of total knowledge. It is a long, often frightening road, but we are finally on the right path. We are beginning to understand that the laws of physics are not rigid truths, but rather the parameters of a high-level language. Gravity, time, and entropy are just the lines of code that keep the system stable. What do you think Willow really found in the dark? Is the universe a giant machine, or is it just math we do not understand yet? Tell me your wildest theories in the comments below. If this blew your mind, make sure to like and subscribe for more mysteries. See you next time.